Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, here to help you become a fabulous maths teacher so that all your children become confident, creative and fluent with their maths. This is the 10th video in the series on teaching maths to children in English Year 1, and it is all about measure. And we're going to cover length, weight, capacity and time. We are not doing money, I'm leaving that for next week. So first, let's clearly state where children are in their journey with measure in Year 1. Last year in reception class, they developed lots of comparative language. So they were looking at whether one thing was longer or shorter than another thing, or heavier and lighter, and so on. Here's a link to that video if you'd like to look at it. We didn't do anything with number. We were just introducing that foundational vocabulary, and this year we're going to start to introduce numbers for measure. And we're going to explore and do experiments to find out that our units of measure must be the same. If you're measuring with units that are longer and shorter than each other, you're going to get into a mess. And then we're going to discover that your units must be the same as the next person's, or things are going to go wrong and you'll get bad results. We're going to do that with length, weight, capacity and time. That is the journey of Year 1. We only start to touch on standard measures like metres and centimetres as a corollary right at the end of our teaching in Year 1. Mostly we're working with non-standard units and just organically exploring the world of measure. So let's get going with length. And I'm going to start length by introducing you to another toy which I think belongs in every Year 1 classroom. If you haven't got it, you can make something similar. But it is measuring worms, also by Learning Resources. You get 72 worms in a pack of mixed colours, and they are in 4 different lengths. They're actually 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch and 4 inch, but that's irrelevant in Year 1. And the colours are mixed, so you could just as easily get an orange very long one as an orange short one. The colours aren't reliable for identifying the length of the worm. And you want to set children a challenge, give them a pile of worms and ask them to find out how many worms long their desk is or something like that. Let them work in pairs or small groups and try and puzzle it out. And in their discussion between themselves, they should quickly puzzle out that their result is meaningless unless they use a consistent length of worm. So once they've discovered they need measuring units the same size, you can give them something like this. This is a stick of 10 multi-link blocks, and you can set them challenges of going around and measuring the length, width and height of all sorts of things, and they can break their blocks and count how many blocks, long, wide or high, each thing is. Another great task at this stage is using your measuring devices to move a measurement from one place to another. So you could ask all your children to measure something that's fixed, maybe stuck to your desk or can't be moved, with their measuring worms of one length or with their tower of blocks, and then go back to their desk and make something, maybe with dough, make a snake that's the same length. And then they really start to get an idea of the point of measuring. You can record the length, width or height of something and translate that into a different place and make something else of the same length, width or height. Now we need to establish the idea that units must be consistent between people or it's not fair. So a great challenge is to get children measuring the width of their classroom with their feet, walking heel to toe carefully across the classroom, making sure they connect every time. And they will gradually discover that different people get different results because they've got different sized feet. And you can introduce the standard foot measure and explain why that's needed, because it's fair and reliable. And you can do some tasks with your measuring worms as well, exploring the fact that if you use shorter measuring worms, you count more of them. And if you use longer ones, you count less of them, and it's important to know which ones you're using. So at the end of your topic on length, width and height, you want to be starting to introduce standard measures of centimetres, metres, feet, inches if you like, so that children begin to get a sense of what these measures are and why they matter and how they're used. You might measure children's height in centimetres and feet, but they're not doing a huge amount of measuring work with standard units in Year 1. That's going to come in Year 2. We're just laying the foundation so that they can better understand the world around them. And now all you have to do is go through the same journey with weight, capacity and time. And you will start to make links. Children will be more ready to notice that you need the same units, and you need the same units between people. And you're trying to make those links and give them this underlying sense of what measure is. So what does that mean with weight? Well, in reception class, we just talked about whether things were lighter or heavier with the balance scale. Now we're going to try and weigh them. You could try weighing things with pine cones to explore the fact that pine cones don't really work because you need a unit where they're all consistently the same weight. You might try weighing things with Duplo blocks. They're all the same weight. That would work. In terms of taking a measure from one place to another, you might set them a task where they've got to weigh something so it weighs the same as 6 Duplo blocks for their cooking or for an art task they're doing. And then you can introduce the standard units that transcend everything that everyone talks about of grams and kilograms. But again, we're just touching on them. They're not doing a lot of measuring with those yet. So what about capacity? Same thing again. They could fill a bucket with cups and explore different sizes of cups and the need to use a consistent cup. And we're working towards the understanding that you've got to use the same size cup all the time or it's going to be chaotic. And if you're going to do things fairly and understand recipes, you've got to use the standard size cup. I haven't got one with me here today, sorry, but it's worth having one so that children see a standard size cup that's used in recipes and cooking. And towards the end of this topic, you can start to introduce millilitres and litres. It's nice to have a litre container, and you can show some millilitres with cookery measuring spoons. Now I've left time till last because time is a real animal of a concept, because time doesn't travel at a constant rate for small children. So it's a much harder idea to get your head round. You can try experiments like throwing a ball in the air and seeing how many claps it stays in the air for. And this explores the need for claps to be at a constant beat, and you can explore different beats with a metronome or a metronome app, and then you can gradually set it to 1 second and explore that standard unit of time for measuring experiments like throwing a ball in the air. And seconds are the useful bit of time because they stay in your short-term memory, so children can get a really deep sense of seconds. Beyond that, it all goes a bit haywire. It's definitely a great idea to get them trying to count how many seconds in a minute and watch a second hand on a clock. It's definitely really wise to have geared clocks, real alarm clocks and so on to play around with and get them to pay attention to what's happening with the hands of time. They are going to really struggle with time in year 2, so any work you can do to establish secure foundations is great. Talk about hours, draw attention to hours in the day. Talk about your days of the week vocabulary you need to develop. The Addams Family song is great. I'm not sure about my copyrights on songs and or my singing voice. So there's Sunday and there's Monday, there's Tuesday and there's Wednesday, there's Thursday and there's Friday, and then there's Saturday, days of the week. I'm sure you know the tune. And for months of the year, a song from The Sound of Music that you can adapt to your culture, your references, you can add your own actions, but it'd be something along the lines of January's cold and dark, February's chilly too. Easter is in March or April. May, pole dancing's fun to do. June, July and August make it summer. September, we go back to school. October's spooky, November's fireworks. And it's Christmas in December. And on we go. For really difficult concepts that are beyond children's ken to really sense and grasp, songs, chants and earworms are particularly important. So to recap, year 1 measure is all about developing an understanding that you need consistent units, both within your own measurement and between people. And you want to start doing activities where they use measurement to take a measurement from one place to another and use it. So they start to understand the point of measuring and have fun along the way. But we're not really worried about our standard units yet. We're just beginning to introduce them. We're mainly using non-standard units for measuring. Some teachers do some amazing stuff with measure. Davidoff, who was a student of Vygotsky, talks about introducing all number through measure by comparing the length of things. So instead of seeing the number 3 as 3 individual objects, you'd see it as being something being 3 times as long as something else. So you learn about number through ratio, and that sets up some really powerful foundations for future understanding of number. I'm not going to go into that because it's too much of a stretch. It's not sufficiently well established. But if you want to play around with it, feel free. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, share your video with friends and other staff, introduce these videos into your year planning time, maybe share them with your TA. Please leave comments, especially if you've got questions. If you want planning guides or further discussion about these ideas, you go to the Facebook group, which is Expert Primary Maths Teacher Planning. Next Thursday, I'll be back with a video about money in year 1. Bye for now.